Is the camera on? Okay, I got a bone to pick with y'all because y'all sitting up here got me laughing and kikiing with y'all, and I done forgot to promote my book. I wrote this book back in 2018, and it's called The Wayward Life of Geraldine Jones. And if you like color purple or historical fiction or anything like that, you're gonna love it. And y'all think these folks scandalous, baby? Geraldine Jones in this book, she more scandalous than anybody on this list. So I suggest y'all go get it. It's on Amazon, and I will put the links in the description. Thank you so much. And one more thing, Brenda. Hey girl, I remembered. Just want to give a quick shout out to Brenda. She is the one that requested the Otis Redding video, and she was actually here when I had like 100 subscribers. And back then, I used to give shout outs to people who requested things. I can't do that anymore because, of course, it's so many people. But I did want to do hers because it's kind of unfair that I did everybody else at that time. So, hey, Brenda, I didn't forget this time, girl. All right, y'all, so let's get on to the old Hollywood scandal, Josephine Baker. Frida Josephine McDonald was born on June 3rd, 1906 in St. Louis, Missouri. Her mother, a lady named Carrie, was a former vaudeville showwoman, and her father, a man named Eddie Carson, was a vaudeville drummer. Now, let's go ahead and sprinkle a little bit of tea in it, honey. I know it's early, but let's get to it. This is regarding her father, Eddie Carson. And also, y'all, I know I don't have any pictures up, but I couldn't find pictures of a lot of people in this story. Anyway, let's get on to the tea. So, Josephine Baker's adopted son, Jean-Claude Baker, said that he and Josephine herself believed her father to be a white German man by the name of Edward. They said that Carrie, Josephine's mother, had worked for a white German couple when she was younger, and it was quite possible that she had gotten pregnant by the man of the house. But it seems like this is just them that believes this, because apparently Carrie never said anything about a white guy, and they explained this away by saying, oh, well, she was very scared and embarrassed that she had gotten pregnant by a white married man. Now, that is what they say, and y'all know I got to give my own opinion. That's just the way I roll. So, in my opinion, I feel like Carrie never said anything because Josephine's father was the very black Eddie Carson. But let's move on. So Josephine lives a very poor life growing up. They have no money. The neighborhood she lives in, it doesn't even have indoor plumbing. There's brothels all around, just a very sketchy neighborhood. Every time she saw a lady pass by with like high-end fashion and the best threads, Josephine would say to herself, I'm gonna get that one day. So it made her very driven, and in turn, she became streetwise. She learned how to hustle very early on in life because she wanted that life for herself. Soon, Josephine's mom married a man by the name of Arthur Martin, and this man was very kind to them, very sweet to them, a great addition to the family. There was only one problem. He ain't had no money, honey. They said that Arthur could never keep no doggone job. So in order to supplement their income, Carrie started to take in laundry from other families, and she would wash them for pay. But this still was not enough money to keep the family afloat. So Carrie sent Josephine off to work. She was only 8 years old, and she became sort of like a live-in maid caretaker to wealthy white families. And Josephine didn't really mind this very much. She loved being around children and babies. But of course, sometimes she got cruel parents that would say, hey, you better not put your lips on my baby. And of course, that was because she was black. And then she started working for the cruelest family of all. The mother of the house used to beat on Josephine really, really badly. As a matter of fact, one time Josephine put too much soap in the laundry and the mother burnt her hands, her little bitty hands. Can you believe that? Then it became even worse when the man of the household tried to come into Josephine's bed and rape her in the middle of the night. And so she screamed like I'm sure a child would and should. And so they fired her. But when she got home, her mother was upset and was like, girl, how can you lose a good job like that? That's a good pay. And this is disgusting. This is ridiculous. And another thing that gets me about the mama so much is that y'all don't have no money. This is established. So why have you laid down and had 3 more children with this man? And you sitting up here will let him sit at the house, but sending your 8-year-old to go, girl, don't get me started. Let's move on. So as the years pass, Josephine is still working. And by the age of 12, she has dropped out of school. And by the age of 13, she has gotten a job as a waitress at the Old Chauffeurs Club. Now, there was a patron at the Old Chauffeurs Club, and he kept his eyes on Josephine wherever she went, and he flirted with her. And this would all be good if he wasn't a 50-year-old man. Yes, he was a 50-year-old steel foundry worker, and she called him Mr. Dad. And if you're wondering why I'm giving the creepy eyes, it's because they actually started dating. And let me tell you how much that Carrie either didn't care about Josephine or didn't like Josephine. Josephine, at 13 years old, actually started to shack up with this 50-year-old man. She was playing house with him. And yes, it is reported that they were having sexual relations. But Carrie ain't care, and the only time that she did start to care is when the neighbors started talking. This little girl is keeping house with this big old grown man. And so that's when Carrie goes and snatches her daughter up. You shaming me. How dare you? Girl, go on. You ain't even cared first. And Carrie sent Josephine back to work at the old Chauffeurs Club. And this time she met another guy, and his name was Willie Wells. Josephine fell in love with him, and they married. But child, these kids ain't know nothing about no marriage or, being faithful to each other and all that kind of stuff. So this marriage ain't last, child. It was over with within the year. But following her divorce, she did find happiness, and that is when she was able to join the street performance group, the Jones Family Band. And in 1921, at the age of 15, she met another man, Mr. Willie Baker, and she soon married him. So Josephine's kind of settling down into the wife role, but she can't get dancing out of her spirit, out of her mind. So at the same time, she's going around town dancing everywhere. And something big happens. She gets accepted in the St. Louis Chorus Vaudeville show. Now, since she's with an actual vaudeville show and not just street performers, she's traveling everywhere to go perform. She's not telling her husband she's leaving. So he starts thinking where is my wife at? Why is this happening? And he actually has a conversation with her, and he's like, look, I need a woman. I need a wife at home. I need you to be a wife. I need you to tend to your husband. I need you to do your wifely duties. This ain't gonna work. And Josephine is like, you know what? I'm sorry. You're right. You deserve a wife to be at home and to care for you. So you need to go find her, because baby, it ain't me. Deuces. Josephine is finding great success, and she travels to New York City. And when she gets to New York, she tries out for Broadway. And at first they're like, no, we don't want you. But she keeps badgering them because, of course, she's very driven. And finally, they chose her to be the pony. And the pony is actually the girl that stands at the end. She does all the dances wrong. And then at the end of the show, she reveals that she's known everything all along. And she does the dances perfectly. Josephine, of course, did not want this. She wanted to be the star. But there was no way in the world that they was going to take that star away from their famous Adelaide Hall and give it to Josephine Baker. They just wouldn't. Rumors say that this is what gave her the drive for superstardom, that she turned that around, that one day she was performing and she did her stuff, and then at the end of the show, she corrected it, and the audience stood up cheering, hooray, hooray, and that's when she knew, hey, they're doing this for me, not nobody else. I am the star. So that is when she realized that she didn't really need anybody. She knew that she could captivate an audience on her own, and she took that and she ran with it. So even though she would still perform with others, she did a lot of shows by herself, and she did these shows in blackface. And her mother was mortified, basically you a coon, you sitting up here embarrassing me. And a lot of her mother's neighbors felt the same way. But Josephine didn't care about none of that. She knew what she was doing. She knew that the money was in performing in front of white people. And she knew the only way to perform in front of white audiences at the time is that she had to wear blackface, which of course is ridiculous. Why should a black performer have to wear blackface? But y'all know it's about the humiliation back then. Y'all know what it is. But Josephine knew that, okay, y'all can laugh in the audience all y'all want. That's cool. But the tee-hee-hee is going to be on y'all, because in a few years, I'm going to have more money than everybody in this audience put together. And baby, she was right. Because Josephine was so successful at performing in front of these white crowds, her profile grew. Her name got around. And she was afforded a chance to go to Paris. But child, here come her mama. What you going to Paris for? Have you forgotten about your husband, Willie Baker? This man is sitting over there needing somebody to be there for him, blah, 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 blah. And Josephine is like, well, mama, you go fix this plate. You go fix it, because I'm gone. So she arrives in Paris and she's looking around and she sees that it's probably some racism there, but it's nothing like the United States. And she knew she was going to take advantage of this. And baby, she looked around and honey, the next thing you know, she pulled an ace out of her doggone sleeve, baby. She performed in a show called Le Revue Negre. And I mean, y'all know I can't speak French, so the Black Review pretty much. And honey, when she walked out on that stage showing all that creamy, bronze, brown, black skin, covering herself with only a flamingo feather, Child, the crowd didn't know what hit them, honey. It was just a deep passion just started rolling in them, just a primal feeling, honey. Their breaths caught in their throat, child. And she performed her dance and did all her flips, and then the show was over. And their breath was still caught in their throat. They didn't know what had happened to them. But baby, when they came to that second performance, everything that they had pent up inside of them, the breath that's caught in their throat, all their passion just came out of them. And you know why? Because that is when she performed her famous banana dance. I'm talking about the crowd went absolutely wild. And suddenly that little black girl became the darling of cafe society. You know, anybody who was somebody had to be seen with the wonderful Josephine. Everybody loved her. People chasing her down the streets, you know. She was Josephine Baker and she had arrived. Everybody was so wrapped up into this Aphrodite goddess that famous painters began begging to paint her. And, you know, she's blowing them off. No, I don't have the time and all of that good stuff. And then finally, she does let somebody paint her. Pablo Picasso. And once she was painted by Picasso, she started hanging out with Jean Cocteau and Ernest Hemingway, who actually called her the most sensational woman in the world. And when Hemingway said that, oh, baby, forget about it, child. And she went up to superstardom, honey. Worldwide fame, baby. Because her success came overnight and the fame came so quickly, Josephine had to find new and inventive ways to retain her audience's attention and, you know, keep their blood flowing. So that is when she got a pet cheetah named Chiquita. And during her shows, she would let Chiquita roam into the orchestra pit and he was scaring musicians and all kind of stuff. But see, wait a minute. To me, that's doing too much. Because, baby, if I was out there playing an instrument and that thing came up on me, I'm climbing on the stage and I'm knocking you out. Because I see you doing too much and you being too funny. Let's move on. And y'all know what we finna move on to. Y'all know what happened when people get famous and all this stuff comes to them, honey. They start having the bedroom boom, honey. And her bedroom was booming. And I mean, to be fair, she was very young. She was open. She was free. She was beautiful. She was unmarried. In her mind, that girl wasn't really unmarried. She was still married to Willie Baker. Child, Willie's still sitting in the U.S. waiting for somebody to put some food on his plate. Is he ever going to get up from the table? She had many lovers. And the crazy thing about it is I was able to find more female names than male names. But that does not mean that she slept with more females. I guess the females were just more notable because they said that Josephine did not have a problem sleeping with regular people. So the men that she slept with probably mostly were regular men. And I mean, I guess that's pretty cool. Give the average Joe a chance. Shucks, they want a chance too. Let's name some of the people that we do know of. Clara Smith, Bessie Allison, Ada, Bricktop Smith, Colette, Evelyn Shepard, Mildred Smallwood, Jorge or George Simenon, and one of her most famous rumps was with Miss Frida Kahlo. So yeah, I mean, she was doing her thing. Now, we've already discussed that Josephine's fame had risen overnight. She was an overnight celebrity. So because of this, she made it without any management, any representation. She done it pretty much by herself. And that made way for the handsome, the learned, the very well-read Count Giuseppe Pepito Abatino to come along. And when the Count asked Josephine could he be her manager, she said yes to not only that, but he also became her lover. And he thought she had fallen into his trap. Because, child, this man wasn't no real Count. He was just a regular stonemason type man from Sicily that just put Count on the front of his name and started traveling the world doing different stuff. But like I always say, once again, the he was on him because Josephine was a slick, smart cookie. And she knew already that he was not a Count because she already knew his cousin, a man by the name of Zito. And what it was, Josephine had liked what she saw when she saw the Count. She basically wanted to turn him into her love-sick puppy. And child, that's exactly what she did. Her game was so doggone strong. This man came in trying to deceive her, possibly trying to rob her. And by the end of the month, it was him that was laid off in the bed crying, having sleepless nights, wondering where she was, begging her to be faithful to just him, kissing her tail. Woo, child, Josephine must have had something good. He probably should have stayed away from that stuff. You know, we try to tell them to stay away, but they They don't stay away. And Josephine broke them down too, baby. I mean, they ended up getting married, but she still was sleeping with whoever she wanted to sleep with. And people were still obsessed with her even if she didn't sleep with them. There's this one tale of this young man who had seen her show. And apparently he couldn't get the image of her out of his head. So he started stalking her, started following her around, showing up to wherever she was, sending her letters, trying to get in touch with her. And Josephine would basically ignore him. And so he sent her one last letter and she didn't respond and he just got fed up. So he followed her and he made sure to stab himself in front of her. I don't know exactly where they were, but this man stabbed himself in front of her. She made sure he was rushed to the hospital and he did not die, but it still didn't get her attention. She basically moved on with her life. And the Count, Pepito, seeing all this, he's just like going absolutely insane. That is his woman. He can't stand all this fawning over her and, especially because she sometimes sleeps with the people. So they go to Hungary because Josephine is on a tour. And there is a Hungarian cavalry officer named Andrei Zolovoidi. And he starts basically following Josephine, sending her flowers, buying her expensive gifts, trying to woo her, trying to get her time, giving her all of his energy. And Pepito was not having none of it, honey. He was sitting up there growing more and more jealous by the minute, especially because Josephine was accepting the gifts. She doing little stuff. She flirting with this cavalry officer. Pepito showed up at the doggone man door and told him, hey, look, I don't think you're man enough for Josephine. That's my woman. But since you ain't gonna leave her alone, we need to have a duel. And Andre, the Savoli man, whatever his name is, that man said yes. I mean, they're just crazy. It's crazy. So they both show up at the Stevens Cemetery and they're getting ready to duel. And I think they're kind of fighting as well. And Andre, the military man, is getting the best of the Count because the Count is older. I don't know what he was thinking. Josephine is there now. And she has watched them fight for like the last 10 minutes. Just boys, calm down, boys, But anyways, they get to the gun and finally she's like, no, hey, guys. That is enough. So it's over with. But the Count still has to be rushed to the hospital because why is you fighting this military man? China man probably was dragging him on the ground and kicking him on the stomach. Now, while all this crazy stuff is going on in Josephine's love life, her star is still shining very bright. In 1931, she comes out with a hit song called J'ai du amour. J'ai du amour, j'avais du pasquara. Sing it, Josephine. J'ai du amour, ce que j'ai du Paris. No, those were not the right words. I don't know how to speak French, but that's my jam, though. Not only does she come out with that hit song, she stars in about 3 movies. So the girl is doing big things and she feels like she's big enough to now go back to the U.S. and be like, hey, the daughter that y'all love the least is back and I have put America on the map in a big way. So she does go back to the U.S. and she puts on a show and the American people hated her. They did her any kind of way. They would write newspaper articles about, how her voice was terrible, how you couldn't even hear her, how she couldn't dance good. And then they wrote a headline that hurt her really, really bad. And that is the one where they were basically like, so friends, this is what y'all call entertainment? Like y'all been hyping her up like she's all that. And she come over here like, baby, y'all can keep that. If that's what y'all want, y'all can keep her. Stuff like that broke her heart in a million pieces. She was humiliated. And first of all, them folks was lying. They knew Josephine was doing the doggone thing. They was just racist. Like they could not give this woman props for nothing. Almost similar to what they did to Billie Holiday when they wouldn't put her on TV. So with her heart broken, she seeked to break somebody's heart too. She was the type that when something happened to her, she was destructive to herself and other people. And the person on her list was Count Pepito. She basically told him that she wasn't into him anymore and that it was over and that she wanted a divorce. And he didn't know what to do. Y'all, he was really, really in love with this woman. So he was scrambling to pick up the pieces and he begged her, please, Josephine, don't send me away. I love you. I have let you have lovers and I've closed my eyes. You can do whatever you want. Please, just don't leave me. And she's like, no, I'm not trying to be with no fake Sicilian count. I want me a real Frenchman. Just basically tearing this man down, so he's broken. So eventually he takes his little broken heart and he does move on. And a lot of people feel like this killed him. He died of a broken heart. And I believe that too because she broke up with him in 1935 and he was dead in 1936. And in 1937, Josephine got her wish. She married a French businessman by the name of Jean Leon. And when she obtained her French passport 4 days later and became a French citizen like ASAP right after she got married, that confirmed for a lot of people that she only wanted to get rid of the Count and marry a Frenchman to get back at America. Like, it was not about love. It was not about the Count not being what she wanted anymore. She was just so hurt by what America did that she wanted to like just stick it in their face and tell them like, you know, screw y'all. Now I'm a French woman. I don't want to have nothing else to do with America. And she vowed to never to return to the U.S. again. After she had married this fully French man and she attained all the benefits that she could get by being a French wife and a full French woman, she fell out of love with him. Actually, she never was in love with him. Like, he was just a part of the game. So she didn't really want to have nothing else to do with him. So child, their marriage ended in 1941. And at this same time, she became a French resistance fighter in World War II. Like, Josephine was doing some real stuff in the military. She was doing spy work. She was planting things places, taking documents, sticking stuff inside of her underpants and sneaking it back to France. Like, you know, she was the real deal. Matter of fact, she was so real that there is a story out that she was poisoned at a dinner table and she barely survived this poisoning. So Sister Girl was a soldier, so much so that when the war was over, they gave her a Medal of Honor. But there was also something else that had happened while she was in the French resistance, and that was that she had her last miscarriage. And when I say last, I say that because she had had several miscarriages in the past. But this one really, really ravaged her body, made her very sick. She had actually got an infection, and it tore up her insides so bad that she had to get a hysterectomy. After the hysterectomy, she developed peritonitis. And after that, she developed sepsis. So again, Josephine was very nearly on her deathbed, but she pulled through and survived. Thank goodness for that. So after her time being a resistance fighter, she met and fell in love with a man named Joe Bullion. And this was a great relationship for her because he helped her deal with that whole racism issue. You know, he worked with her, he talked to her, stroked her hair, really, really was caring with her. And they got married on June 3rd, 1947. Ain't none of these marriages been legal, y'all. None of them. Because guess what? Guess what's happening? Willie Baker, child, he's still sitting at home waiting for that plate of food. Josephine ain't never divorced that man, child. That is her true husband. Let's get back to Joe. So, like I said, he helped her build up her confidence and fight racism so much that she decided to go back to the United States once again. The year was 1951, 20 years since the last time she had came to the U.S. And thankfully this time they were a little bit more accepting and approving of Josephine Baker. In Las Vegas, she played sold out shows. And Miami saw what Vegas was doing and they're like, hey, you know, we want to make that kind of money. So Miss Josephine, can you come down here and perform? And she actually came and then she found out it was a segregated audience. And she was like, no, sir, I'm not getting on that stage. And they're like, okay, please. We'll give you $10,000 if you just step foot on the stage. And Josephine said, baby, you must not know about me. You must not know I got millions in the bank. Do you not know that? And finally, they're just like, hey, you know what? Them little racist folks in the audience, y'all might as well not even come because, baby, we finna integrate this audience. And that's what they did. And she finally agreed to perform. And I don't blame them. Like, ain't nobody finna sit up there and stop their coins because y'all sitting up there talking about y'all don't want to rub elbows with the black folks. Well, keep your elbows at home. Now, there was one event this time when she was in America that she experienced racism. And I mean, there probably was a few more, but this one was famous because this is the time that she had went to eat at the Stork Club and they refused her service. So Josephine goes to the Stork Club in all her finery and she sits down and tries to go eat. And apparently somebody comes out and tells her like, you know, basically, we don't serve your kind here. And Josephine is like, really? And at the same time, actress Grace Kelly was sitting a couple of tables over. So she noticed what was going on with Josephine and she rushed over there and she's like, so y'all ain't gonna serve her? And they're like, no. And she's like, you know what? This is disgusting. Don't worry about my service either. And she and her full entourage got up and left with Josephine Baker. As they were leaving, this is when Grace Kelly said her spitfire line, I'll never eat here again. And child, she was back there 4 years later, child. And maybe it was because her new husband, Prince Rainier, wanted to go eat there. I don't know. Or maybe she felt like, you know, 4 years is enough. If that ain't enough, Josephine, I don't know what to tell you. Or maybe she forgot. I don't know. Now, Josephine is back in France and her and Joe Bullion are just so in love. And Josephine tells him of a plan where she wants to adopt children of different nationalities, different ethnicities, different cultures, all this kind of stuff. And Joe is like, okay, you know, I'll support you on that. But child, after she adopted about the 6th or 7th child, Joe was like, you're not making the money that you used to make, and you have really big spending habits. So I think it's wise that maybe you don't adopt any more children. If you get any more kids, it's over with. I'm gone. But y'all, when did Josephine ever listen to a man? So honey, when she brought home that next child, Joe Bullion was like, I told you what it was. Bye. And of course, this did hurt Josephine because, of course, she loved him. She wanted it to work, but she also wanted to realize her dream of adopting these children. And eventually, she adopted 12 children in all. And the names of those 12 children are French-born Marianne, Moroccan-born Selena, Korean-born Jeno, Japanese-born Akio, Colombian-born Luis, Finnish-born Jerry, French-born Jean-Claude and Noel, Israeli-born Moise, Algerian-born Brahim, Ivorian-born Kofi, and Venezuelan-born Mara. Whew. Child, Joe probably knew what he was talking about, honey. That's a lot of doggone kids. They lived with her in her chateau, and she had a whole bunch of servants and maids and everybody to help her raise the kids. But Joe was right. Josephine did have a terrible spending habit. She was one of those stars that she felt like money was not going to run out for her. There's even a story floating around out there that she purchased a fixer-up home, like a home that was basically gutted in the inside, for hundreds of thousands of dollars, claiming that she was going to fix it up and that's her dream home, and didn't do nothing with it, child. Just sat up there and paid that money and then abandoned the house. You could have gave that money to me. I mean, well, I wasn't around back then, but Josephine, you should have found my great-grandma something and gave her that doggone money. It should have been in my lineage. That's all I know. But of course, with great spending comes great debt. And soon she lost the chateau. She just couldn't afford it anymore. She owed everybody something. And Grace Kelly again did step up to the plate and offered her an apartment in Morocco. I mean, but really, Grace, an apartment, and I got these 12 kids. But I mean, I guess Grace was like, listen, ain't nobody else offered you nothing. So you either take it or leave it. And that's right. Nobody else did step up for her. Now, we know Josephine is going through severe debt, but Josephine did not like to face reality when it came to negative stuff like that. Like, she would fight all the causes in the world, but when it came to like her finances and anything that kind of showed that she was going down, she didn't want to pay any attention to that, so she blocked that out. So she focused her attention on the civil rights movement in the U.S. She carried the mantle so much that when Martin Luther King passed away, Coretta Scott King approached her and asked her, would she be interested in taking the torch up from Martin and going ahead to continue his cause? And Josephine actually thought about this for a little while. And then she was like, no, my kids are too young to lose their mother. So she stayed involved with the movement, but she actually ended up going back to France, and then she started touring again. And this was like the early 60s. So she did that all the way up until 1975. Speaking of 1975, she actually had her 50th celebration show, celebrating her 50th year in show business. Everybody showed up. It premiered on television. You know, everybody just had a wonderful time. And 4 days later, she was found in her bed sleeping, surrounded by newspaper clippings. And all of these clippings were papers that were like giving her rave reviews. So obviously she had been reading about herself, just kind of reminiscing on her showbiz career. When they tried to rouse her, though, she did not wake up. And that is when they rushed her to the hospital, and it was found that she was in a coma because she had had a cerebral hemorrhage. She ended up never waking up from that coma, and she died on April 12th, 1975. And that is the old Hollywood scandalous tale of Miss Josephine Baker. You guys go ahead and click like and subscribe. Oh, and guys, I have a Facebook page now. Look at Ashley Says So, trying to do a little bit, baby. Right now, I got 1 follower on that doggone page. And I mean, I did just make it yesterday, but still though, I'm sitting up here seeing all these other folks with the 100,000 followers and stuff like that on their entertainment page, and I'm sitting up there with 1. Y'all go like and follow that page. Got me out here looking like that. Love you guys. I hope you all have a great night.